Hello to everyone once again. Welcome to the webinar and thank you for taking the time to join. We are going to have an interesting day today. I am Anna Duplava. I'm working for Eurasia as Policy and Project Officer. I will be moderating today's session. We will be focusing on advancing civic engagement in universities and some practical tools. We will discuss about practical experiences and ways to make a real impact with student civic engagement. We will be hearing from Laura and Jorn, our first presenters, and also from Joe and Matteo in the lightning talks part. And after the lightning talks, we will take a short break and we will be joining breakout rooms, and we will be discussing practical ideas how to improve student civic engagement, what we can do, and what we can do as well as at different levels, at the student level, at the professor's level, and also decisional level. A quick reminder, this session will be recorded, so we can share it later on the EngageAll project website. If you turn your camera or microphone, that means you're happy to be included in the recording. If you'd rather not appear, no problem at all, just keep your camera and microphone turned off. As well as during the breakout rooms, there will be no recording, so this doesn't apply there. Feel free to open camera and microphones as you feel more comfortable. And we're going to start with our icebreakers on Miro. I'm going to ask Laura, who is helping me with the Miro board, to go to the next activity. Thank you. And I'm going to put once again the link for those who have joined a bit later. We are going to do a short introduction of where you're joining us from. So feel to take a dot from the left and put it on the map so we can have an idea where are you joining us from. And I am seeing a few dots in France, Belgium. I also joined from Belgium. Originally, I am from Moldova. And I'm seeing a lot of pointers on the map moving. And we have someone joining us from Estonia. We have people joining from Belgium. We definitely have a big majority from Belgium. Some people from Germany, Croatia. Welcome here, and also from outside Europe, which is nice it's nice to have you here. Malta as well. Yes, also if you'd like, you can make them smaller, by the way, because indeed the dots you take from the left, they are a bit bigger. You can make them smaller if you want. Someone also is joining from Ukraine. As well as from Algeria, if I'm seeing right, and Spain. And Slovenia. That seems quite a good mix of different experiences from different countries. I'm going to add a dot for myself for Moldova. Okay. Thanks a lot for indulging us into this icebreaker and for sharing where I'm from. And I'm going to ask Laura to move to the next one, to the next part of the icebreaker. So we would like to see whether you are an educator, part of the academic staff. If you are a student, on the right upper corner, if you are part of university management or you are part of administrative staff. And if you see the from the circle, if you see the overlap of the circle with the squares, yeah, I would like to ask you to put a note there if you are also involved in representation activities or civic engagement activities. We seem to have quite a lot of people involved in representation activities, and I am seeing people from all four groups, which is a very good indicator for our work today. Okay, I think everyone already managed to put their dot on the image. Thanks a lot for this. I'm happy to see a very diverse group here in the meeting. And with this, we will be moving to the presentation of the framework. Thank you a lot, Laura, for helping with the presentation of the mural board. I am pleased to introduce Laura and Jorn, who will present our civic engagement framework and share insights from recent focus groups. Laura, Jorn, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna, and welcome everybody to our slot. We're very happy to have the opportunity now to present or introduce our really brand new framework of student civic engagement called Engage Comp. But first of all, I think it's time to introduce ourselves, and I will hand over to you, Jörn, to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Hi, my name is Jörn Allmann. I'm academic researcher at the DHBW, the Cooperative State University Baden-Württemberg in Karlsruhe, Germany. And yeah, I'm working on different projects regarding competence development, skills, future skills, and also our university is coordinating this project, the EngageAll project. Back to you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Laura. I'm also working at the same research group as Jörn at our Cooperative State University. It's a specific university where students work and then they go to university. So it's a dual university. They're often very busy, so it's kind of hard for them often to find time for student engagement, but we still have a lot of engaged students. And yeah, I work as a researcher in the research team and also with a focus on transformational future skills in my PhD. So I'm very interested in this topic. And as I'm a very enthusiastic volunteer myself, I think there's really a lot of potential in having a look at the competences that students can gain through student civic engagement. So it's been quite a pleasure working on that. A little agenda for our presentation. It won't be very long, but it will be a little overview of the framework and how we came to this framework and why we deemed it important to have a look at competences that you can learn through student civic engagement. And it will be a basis for further discussion because in the end, we will We will be very happy if this framework goes out into the world of student civic engagement and is being used. So we want to discuss with you how we can best use it. So we are quite curious about that. So we give a little project overview about the EngageAll project, in which this competence framework has been designed. Then we'll have a look a little bit about what we understand as student civic engagement, and then Jörn will present the framework. And we will, of course, talk about what we will do afterwards. And then we will get some more impulses and dive into the discussion with you. Yeah, as said, we are part of the Next Education Research Group, where we deal a lot with the topic of future skills, competences in higher education, etc. So as we were also involved in a previous project, Inclusive, it was a very good opportunity to work in this project to have a look at the specific future skills and competences that can be gained through student civic engagement. So let's have a little bit of a look into the EngageAll project. In the room, I think we have some of our consortium members to work together with us. The EngageAll project has a very long name because it's an Erasmus Plus funded initiative that says inclusive student civic engagement as a pathway for enhanced skills and competence in professional higher education. We started it about 1 year ago, and it's lasting for 2 years and a half, a bit more. And there we have the opportunity and the aim to have a look at professional higher education specifically, but it can also be extended to other contexts. But since we are some universities, some higher education institutions that deal specifically with professional higher education in a very applied learning context, there's a specific focus on that. And we are addressing something that formal education is mostly in the focus in students' competence development, but there's also a big potential in the non-formal part. And for example, in students' volunteering community work, etc., that can be within the university if they are a part of a student board, etc., but that can also be exterior to the university, for example, when you're part of a club, a sports club, and you're a trainer there, etc. So we want to have a look at that important field, not only because, of course, there's a big learning space, but because, of course, this matters a lot for our societies. And it's something that we want to foster, that we want to promote in a way, because we think it's very important for us living together in our societies. So with this, what we're presenting today, we have a specific look at the competences that students can enhance while engaging in volunteering community work. And in the project, we want to develop a competence framework and also tools that support higher education institutions in doing so. Also for promoting student engagement is a very important thing of our living together in European societies, but also as a possibility for future skills learning. So that as a little insight into our project. As you see, we are in the middle of the project. So we have some things ahead, an exciting program that we're having a look at later. And right now we're happy to have the competence framework to present to you. In our consortium, we are quite a large consortium of different countries, and we have some universities, which is Mondragon University from the Basque Country in Spain. We have AMCAST from Malta. We have UCLL from Leuven-Limburg in Belgium. And we have us as a German cooperative state university in Baden-Württemberg. And then we have EURASHI and the European Students' Union as international organizations. And we have the Knowledge Innovation Center from Malta as well, and the Institute for the Development of Education from Croatia. So we're also very international. And I think we're also very international here, as we could see in the introductory round. So quite excited about that. In the end, in the project, we want to develop some resources that can be further used. And the first outcome that we're presenting today is the competence framework for student engagement and civic participation. There's some further resources that we want to develop, methodology and training module for a student ambassador program. There we try to put it into practice, like the theoretical foundation. And in the end, we also want to develop a course handbook with supporting resources and also other resources. Yeah, what's important? We are talking about student participation, civic participation, student engagement, student civic engagement, etc. Civic participation, we brought you a definition as we define it in our initiative, is a fundament for an active and democratic society. And it is the way in which citizens get involved in the life of their communities to improve conditions for others. And also universities have a crucial role to play in the formation of active citizens promoting their social commitment. In the project, we focused on the term student civic engagement, which is also deeply connected to civic participation. And the framework that we're going to present is also a framework on competences that can be acquired through student civic engagement. And here we focus on collaborations between students and organizations within and outside the education and higher context with the aim of supporting others and serving the community. And as maybe indicated a little bit in the beginning of the presentation, it facilitates the development of civic responsibility and democratic values. So that as the basis for our framework, we want to have a little bit of a look why, from our point of view, it makes sense also to bring that part, student civic engagement, together with a part of future skills and competences. Future skills is a very hot topic right now in the domain of education, of higher education, widely discussed, because we think that students also need to be equipped with some competence to take responsibility and action in times of rapid transformation of many crises, to also take responsibility towards better futures and co-created futures. And the competences can be named future skills, and they can be defined as competences to solve complex problems in highly emergent contexts of action in a self-organized way. So as you see, it's about being able to act successfully in contexts which are rapidly changing. And yeah, there's always the question, how can we actually learn that, and how can we promote future skills learning in higher education? And one very promising thing is to have a look at student engagement, because there students have the opportunity to get engaged and to take responsibility already in many ways that sometimes it's hard to do that actually in the formal context of higher education. And there's a significant potential to foster and develop these competencies in engagement, volunteering contexts. So this is our basis for what we aimed at doing. So our aim was to have a look at what competences are these actually that students can best learn, deepen, foster through student civic engagement. In order to find that out and to design a competence framework for that, we have had, as you can see, quite a complex research process. Let me guide you a little bit through that, not in all depth. That will be published in a report that will soon be out and that we will provide you with, where you can read the whole research process and find out more about it. But we started last year actually with a exploratory workshop where we also worked with personas, where we wanted to really have a look with different people who were in the engagement context, who were themselves volunteers, for example, or experts, for example, in service learning. And we had a look at some personas of engagement and had a look at what are they actually doing, what are their activities, what are their motivations, and what competences do they actually need in their respective contexts. Then there was a systematic literature review conducted by our colleagues from Mondragon University about the civic participation, student civic engagement, etc., to really form our grounded theoretical basis for the further steps of our project. And yeah, as you can see, there were quite a lot of documents screened. that were the basis for further formulation of a theoretical framework. Also, we did not only do that, but we also engaged the whole consortium to have a look at framework and existing reports, because we knew there are already a lot of resources out there dealing with student civic engagement that, of course, we wanted to take into account. So we identified with the power of our international network quite a lot of frameworks and reports from different countries and from the EU level, and also beyond, that we took into account for the further research. From there, we identified the competences that were named in them. So from the literature, we could already extract a competence list, which we clustered, and then we analyzed some gaps. For this, we took the next skills, future skills framework that we used in our research group, which has proven to be a good one for structuring really frameworks, because there are three domains: the individual, the object-related, and the world-related domains. So we had a look at, from the competence that we find from all these resources, which ones can we maybe not find, which can we not put into that analysis grid. And that was a good starting point to really think about, okay, how can we restructure this and how can we cluster these competences? We had a preliminary framework, but also we did a very large research with the whole consortium which was a qualitative survey. And we agreed from the beginning, this is a very important topic and a very important research step for us. We want to include students in it, of course, who do the engagement, who are involved in students' civic engagement, and who can tell us best what they experience there, what competences they need, what competence they have learned there, and also experts in the field that maybe are mentoring, that are designing some learning experiences that help students reflect on the competences that they have learned. So what we did was all the partners did some interviews and focus groups about the topic of student civic engagement with a guided research interview grid, and we transcribed them, anonymized them, and did a qualitative content analysis. And all of this has also been integrated into the framework in our research outputs. So we will have a little insight at that later, because of course there have been a very interesting discussions about that. And yeah, I will hand over to Jörn, because this has just been the methodology, but now we have some output that we want to discuss with you, and we hope that this is something for further use and exploration.
Thank you very much. You are probably now all very excited to see the results of the huge research process we went through. But before we are showing the framework, maybe a short lead in. So what the idea and the scope of the framework is: basically, the framework describes the competences that students develop through activities, service learning, volunteering, and other forms of civic involvement. Because as we heard, that engagement, especially in this non-formal context, foster a broad spectrum of competences, and we want to give guidance and offer practical help in addressing these competences. Because in order to define learning outcomes, and in order to speak about what students can do or what they learn, it's also important that they have the vocabulary, or we have the vocabulary, to talk about these competences. So yeah, that was also the idea of the competence framework, the EngageComp framework. Yes. So you can also see the framework on the Miro board, and we will lead you through the different parts. The competence framework has 20 competences, with civic and democratic competence as a central competence in the middle, and has three different parts. We will show you in a minute in detail. One individual context, more on the personal level; one societal context that is more focused on collaboration and social responsibility; And also one context we called practice context, where the competences are more about application and problem solving. So the first part, individual context, there it's, as I said before, a lot about the personal area of student civic engagement. It's about self-reflection, adaptability, and competences for sustainable personal and professional futures. For example, you can see it's about learning competence, about the topic of reflection, about self-determination, and also one part that was very, a lot of interviews show that the part of ethical competence is very important in student civic engagement. The second part, the practice context, these are more competences students use in their organizations, in their fields of volunteering. It's about problem-solving capacities or addressing innovation kinds of management or dealing with the system they are in their field of volunteering. The third part, the societal context, is usually part about cooperation. As you can all imagine, cooperation, communication, competence, or competences that are very vital in each part of field area, and of course also in the part of student civic engagement. It's also about sense making or leadership competence, and also one part was diversity and intercultural competence. We won't go in detail for each of the competences, just to show you some parts. And as Laura already mentioned, there will be a full report where you can see all the different competences, descriptions, etc. So in the middle of this framework, there is the civic and democratic competence. There was also a trope, a theme that was basically in each of the interviews and all the frameworks we found that civic and democratic competence is something you gain through student civic engagement. But in our research, we found out it's difficult to see it as a single competence on the same level as the competences from the three different areas. And it's more an overarching competence. So that's also the reason why we framed it and we put it in the middle. And it's a competence that is basically composing of all the different competences from the three different fields. And on the right, you see our definition of civic and democratic competence. So basically, it's the ability and readiness to engage actively, responsibly, and ethically in democratic and civic life through engagement and societal practice-based individual context. There's also a value part in it. For example, it's important to value democracy, human rights, cultural diversity, equality, etc. So basically, this is the competence that is comprising of all these different areas. So for the next part, we want to just highlight one or two competences from the framework, and also to show you how the structure of the framework is, but not to go too much in detail. For example, one competence that was very important in the individual context was the competence self-efficacy. So basically to be able to work and in different contexts, to take initiative, responsibility, also to setting personal boundaries and have some kind of professionalism. All the competences are described with the description, but also with reference competences. And reference competences are basically competences and skills situated within each of the profiles. So self-efficacy is it's more a competence profile comprising of these different skills within this competence. For example, self-efficacy is also about goal orientation, self-confidence, setting boundaries, etc. And yeah, we also wanted to highlight some quotes we found in the qualitative interviews so that it's a bit more easy to follow all the different competences. For example, some students said that you have to be very responsible and have to have a lot of self-control to be very organized and focused, and that, of course, you have to be on time. Another interesting quote was that student engagement in general empowers students to take ownership of their learning and development. Basically, two quotes that highlight which parts of the individual context domain are very important. In the next level, the societal context, there was one competence we want to highlight. A lot of students, as well as experts, talked about diversity and intercultural competence. On the right side, you can see the description, and a lot of reference competences that were mentioned are, of course, diversity recognition. The topic of empathy was, basically all of the interviews. It's about perspective taking and a lot about cultural awareness and openness. And again, we have one or two quotes to fit into this domain. For example, one student said it's very important to have a lot of empathy and understanding towards the people around you, mostly when it's a busy day and a lot of hard working is being done. In the next part, the practice context, we want to highlight the competence future and design. Competence is also one competence or one idea a lot of experts and students highlighted that when you are doing volunteering or civic engagement, it's also always about the future. So the competences people mentioned were about, a future mindset, the readiness to development, also about initiating change. So to have the ability and the motivation, the intrinsic will to lead change and to try to have some impact on the future. And again, we have here one or two quotes. For example, one student said it's Student Civic Engagement helped a lot in developing skills for decision making in crisis management, different projects, and of course the topic of organizational skills, project management, where a few skills basically, especially on the student side, nearly everyone mentioned. So about reflection and to know what you are capable of doing and what you have to do in order to do your volunteering. And also for the civic and democratic competence part, we brought you one or two quotes. One expert said that especially democratic competence is the central issue here, so that student civic engagement is one way to help us continue to live as a democratic society, and that it also helps to foster some kind of responsibility for each other, and to show some kind of engagement that's larger than your own life or immediate surroundings. So as you can see, a lot of interesting quotes. We also found while developing this framework. So to conclude, we brought some insights into student civic engagement that highlight very nicely what you learn about what you learn during student civic engagement. For example, one student said that, that you learn a lot of skills you wouldn't otherwise acquire during studies. Things they couldn't do, for example, in their company. In this example, it was a student from the DHBW, a dual student. So basically, all the students said that student civic engagement helps them to get skills they need in the future, but often it's not very much recognized. Or also, organizations don't give students time to gain these competences or to have time to engage civically. So this was a short overview on the framework. As we said, there will be a concise report and a full report, also with a detailed methodology, with different quotes and the whole research process, and also with an ESCO alignment. We will send the concise report in a follow-up email after this webinar. Then the next parts of the project are our student ambassador scheme. So we want to pilot different student civic engagement courses in the 4 PhEs within the consortium. And for example, in these ambassador schemes, the idea is to connect students from diverse backgrounds with young people from underrepresented backgrounds in the community. And another part we are working is a reflection guideline to have some alignment between activities or different student engagement roles and also the framework, so that students can reflect what competences they are lacking or they want to improve on, and so it's easier for students to deal with the framework. So that was our short, a bit longer than expected overview on the framework. And Carl, thank you very much for your attention. And if you have questions, you are free to ask.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I really love the part from the focus groups. It really helps to link certain competencies with the reality of the civic engagement. And I'm really looking forward to the reflection guideline. I think it would be a really good tool to introduce some civic engagement activities in the curricula and also help students understand what activities to what skills are contributing. And we do have, for now, I saw 2 questions, maybe more will come. So the first one was from Pauline. The first one was if we're planning to share the framework with the European Commission unit, which is working on action plan for basic skills, which I think would be a great idea. One of the basic skill they identify is citizenship skill, but they seem to have trouble in understanding that it is a set of competencies, and therefore it will be hard to set up a unique indicator to measure it. Unless you think there are solutions for measuring it. And I'm not sure, Laura, Jorn, if you'd like to take the floor.
Maybe we have one thing is that we're also aligning it with the ESCO framework, so that can be helpful, I think, to have a look at the single skills that are related to it. And then I think an approach that we have that we also will follow up with in the reflection guideline is that for every competence is also in the context that you are engaged and can look very different. So one thing of not maybe measuring it would be to make visible the progress you have made in a specific competence and to bring it back and link it to the experiences that you have also done. So to link it to your individual engagement context. And that would be an approach that we will follow with a reflection guideline. Like, can you link your competence development and progress to specific experiences that you have made to the engagement and use it for your planning? So that would be one approach, I think. Good question.
Thank you. And the second question, if the framework is made for professional higher education, well, it was not a question, it was just the first part. The question is actually if the framework is applicable to EQF level 5 as well, or only EQF 6 or 7?
I think it's applicable. We're curious to get some feedback how well it is applicable.
I think these are competences are important for different levels of so not only to the higher professional higher education.
Thank you. And maybe just a quick suggestion, Laura, maybe you can add your emails in the chat for anyone who would like to have a closer look afterwards and to share your feedback. I think it would be really great to have it. And we have a hand raised. Kai, please, you have the floor.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was really very interesting presentation. I would have a question. I understand that democratic and civic competencies are somehow, well, say, formed by the other contexts. I wondered a bit if it's really comprehensive. So if really everything that one would attached to this is covered by the other contexts. And I mean, for example, I could not find a place for democratic values. So my question would be where this is in these contexts. I assume it's not missing, but just to know. And another question would be regarding also again on the measurement side of these competencies. So do you plan, or is there still an instrument to be developed for measuring these competencies? Are you planning to do this, or what's your stage in this regard? And will it be shared or useful by other projects? Thank you.
Maybe I can start. So yeah, thanks for the interesting question. I think on the first part it was also about the democratic value, I think. So yeah, it's in the civic and democratic competence. Because in our understanding, we have the classic idea of the term competences comprising of skills and knowledge and values. So basically, the democratic value is in the description of democratic competence. So the values are part of each of the competences. And on the second question was about the measurement. And yeah, that's always the difficult part in competences, the measurement. And I think that we address that with the point Laura mentioned, the reflection guidelines. So maybe it could be more maybe an online tool where students maybe have some kind of self-assessment. We can also maybe see some progress over time. So more self-assessment because it's difficult to have a very objective measurement of these kind of competences. That would be maybe the approach. You can add or if you
Just yeah, we are using the tools with our future skills teaching context and workshops, which is the future skills compass, where we work with actual situations that students try to place themselves into and assess how well prepared they feel for this situation. And there's also like a repository of scales, validated scales that relate to these competences. So there's different kinds of supported self-assessment that brings student closer to a measurement and actual reflection and make it more concrete, the competences that they learn. So I think we will have a look at how we can adapt that, especially to the civic engagement context as well. But it's a good question, and we're always open for new ideas for that.
Thanks a lot for your input. And thanks, Laura and Jürgen, for the presentation. It's really nice to see again the amount of work which has been done for this competence framework, and looking forward to the next steps. And I'm going to move to the lightning talks. I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Joseph Ryan. Joseph, in your work with the Technological Higher Education Association, you have plenty of occasions to see civic engagement in action, and we are looking forward to hearing your personal experiences and practical lessons. The floor is yours.
Many thanks, and I do appreciate that. I've sent you a presentation. I don't know if you can upload that there or not. If you can, well and good. If not, I'm happy to speak to it.
I am I am on it.
Excellent.
Just 1 second. It's my computer sometimes is having a few issues, and I'm just opening it now.
Thanks, Anna.
I have lost the screen sharing button. Just 1 moment. Okay, I was having a lot of windows open. I hope it's working now. Do you see the presentation?
Not so far, not here, certainly, Anna.
Okay, I'm going to give it a second try.
Yes.
Is that all right?
That's looking good, yeah. And can you move the slides, Anna, for me? Do you mind?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So we're going to the next slide. Thank you very much. So first of all, greetings from Ireland. And Anna, I know you've been up since something like 3 o'clock in the morning. So, I admire your technical skill to be able to do all of this. This is a really timely conversation. And I'm very conscious in this of the power of collaboration right throughout Europe. I mean, it's marvelous to be listening to Laura and to Jon on the work that the consortium is doing to date, and to acknowledge your own work, Anna, in leading this, and everyone is contributing to it. On to the next slide, please. Thank you. This is a really timely conversation, and there were some references to this earlier on. It seems to me that at the heart of what we all do is the question of academic freedom. It's the question of free thought. And in my time, which has been a fairly long time, I have never seen this under the same type of scrutiny and insecurity. What I've written there is what seemed that those immutable verities that we all hold so dear, that they don't seem so prevalent or secure right now. And very often that conversation comes from the very place that itself talks about the importance of free speech. But it seems to be a free speech that agrees with a particular line. It raises a very interesting question, and it came out in the presentation so far as what is the role of further and higher education in this. I'm not making the argument here that further and higher education is responsible for the totality of free speech, but you are talking about a time when an increasing cohort of people have the advantage of being in further and higher education. So therefore, it is a very precious space for developing that positive approach to dialogue and open thinking, of testing ideas, of probing ideas, of being a safe space for exactly that type of discussion and freedom, which informs a really mature society. The quote at the bottom of that slide is from Cardinal John Henry Newman. And Newman's book on, and his discourse on the idea of a university, 1852, is an extraordinarily rich resource, it seems to me, for this type of conversation. And I will come back to Newman again. If we can go to the next slide. Thanks very much, Anna. Looking at the framework to date and listening, with great interest to what Laura and Jorn were saying, I'm very struck by how granular and how detailed it is. So many of us go into further and higher education, obviously with a disciplinary focus, with that sense of wanting to increase our knowledge, skills, and competence within our own area, our own passionate area. But so many of us will go on to have lives that go well beyond that. Our career paths will take us elsewhere. So it's the otherness of education. It's those other transitory skills that become so, so important. And I've just mentioned a few of them. This is not by no means an exhaustive list, but they were touched upon by speakers already to date on this conversation. Judgment, analytical skills, synthesis, teamwork, communication, leadership, delegation, and so many more. But this is the very stuff of an education. And if I go to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Anna, this is actually at the heart of what Newman is talking about in his discourse. It's all of the other stuff that one does, that one gains. It's the teamwork, it's the other elements that one benefits from in the whole higher education or indeed further education sphere. I won't read it all out now. I let people read that in their own time. But it's that question of, just to take the middle line, of cultivating the public mind. In other words, of a training that itself can move you into different areas. And the question then is, how does one inculcate that? And I noticed that you talked yourself, Anna, about building this into the curriculum. And Jorn was talking about that question of civic and democratic competence that comes from this. And on to the next slide, if I may. Thank you very much, Anna. So the framework focus, obviously is on this question of student engagement and equity. Equity was mentioned as a key part of this. It's the active involvement. And I noticed Laura used the term co-creation. That question of partnership and ownership becomes really, really important. And again, one can see these frameworks in various different ways, but certainly what has been referenced already is that social element to it, the educational element and the personal element. And we all know that, as graduates, as people who come through and our students who graduate come through, that they're going to work in social constructs. So therefore, working and the ability to work with others, some of whom won't be of a similar mind, and to work positively with those becomes really, really important, which brings me to my next slide. The big challenge, of course, is how you give effect to this. We had rafts of legislation going through the Irish Parliament. And my mind always goes back to legislation from 1999, the Qualifications, Education and Training Act. It was itself a result of a lot of conversation at a European level, and it was the first legislation in Ireland that really put the student at the heart. And it became really seminal in our work and in our shaping. It was focused on the technological sector, so it is the grounding piece of legislation that led ultimately to what we've now formed with these technological universities here. And I know many colleagues are watching the development of that with interest. The question, of course, it's one thing to say students should be at the center of everything. It's another thing then to actually give effect to it. So if you look at this island, if you look at Ireland, you can't have an evaluation, you can't have an accreditation, you can't have an academic council, you can't have a governing body of an institution without meaningful student engagement. The challenge, of course, is that if students are in a forum like that with very experienced academics and with leaders and with people from industry who are champions of their own particular craft, how can you equip, how can you facilitate a student? How can you give them that agency to deal with that in the time that they have to deal with it? And I'll mention two resources which you and I would have discussed previously, Anna, and I think they'll be very helpful in the discussion. One is the Sparks, the Student Partnership in Quality Scotland. Certainly, when I was working on our national forum here for teaching and learning, we looked very closely at Sparks, which was founded in 2003. And I recommend it to people on the call as an excellent resource. They've done an awful lot of work on empowering students and on looking at the framework and looking at the competences. And I think as Laura and Jorn do their work, I think they'll find that, I'm sure they know of it already, I think they'll find that an excellent resource. It led us some time to launch our own element in Ireland, which is called NSTEP. It's referenced there as well. It becomes much later, over a decade later. But again, it's students at the heart of this, and it's again equipping students and facilitating students for the very agency. And then to the final slide, if you don't mind. And I'm conscious here of trying to make up time for you, and also I'm taking this lightning term that you gave is what's leading me on. You did ask to reflect upon, how has this been here in Ireland? If I think back on the generations of students that I've dealt with at a national level in negotiation, and if I think of them at the institutional level when I was a VP for academic in one of our universities, or if I think of it through Eurasia and other European bodies, and working on various initiatives, and see how strong and informed the student voice has become, and see how they in turn, that student voice and that engaged voice has challenged sort of what were comfortable assumptions. It was a rather comfortable space. And it's lovely to see how that rocked, and because that keeps us all very much on our game. And in Ireland, we're very much given to things like talk radio. So you have lots of programs where there's people giving views about current affairs. And it's wonderful to hear former students, former student leaders now appearing on those fora, having voice, having agency on so many topics. And there's a sense from that this work, the work that you're involved in here, the work that you're supporting here, is so important. And it's so important to go back to my first point in that question of open dialogue, open, free, and challenging dialogue, but always respectful dialogue. With that, I'll say thank you, Anna, and pass back to you. You're on mute, Anna, but I'm sure it's very good.
Thanks for the heads up. Thanks a lot for the presentation. It's really nice to learn from a different country's experience, especially where we can see empowerment in practice. And we now turn to Matteo Vespa from Civil Society Europe. Matteo, we are very looking forward to hear perspective and personal stories about the role of civil society in strengthening civic engagement at universities. As well, Matteo has been involved before in OBESU as well as ESU, European Students' Union, and the OBESU, the Student Union for school organizations. So I think he also would have a lot of comprehensive experience on civic engagement. Thanks for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. And I can testify that with different years of student experience, and also in being involved in ESU and knowing the pathways that many ESU alumni had in after they finish with the student movement, indeed, like student representation is a very, let's say, good school of life, also for not only for a political career, but also for a professional one. And it is very easy, let's say, it was written for what regards the scouts in the presentation that you did, but I can also confirm that you can very much see when someone has done the student movement in the terms of the attention to the details and the leadership experiences that they have. My experience now, I work for Civil Society Europe, which is as policy and project officer, which is the European let's say, coordination of the European networks of civil society organizations, so from different walks of life, from also the Scouts, the European Youth Forum, the Lifelong Learning Platform, the organization that work more on volunteering, so, the organization work more on solidarity, international solidarity, anti-poverty, anti-racism, and so on. And but my personal experience also counts basically to the crossroads of how basically student engagement and student participation became, let's say, an element that actually was crucial also for my personal, let's say, career experience. I arrived in Brussels as the first president of the European Students' Union. Then I continued my journey here in Civil Society Europe, and I can confirm that the experiences that you develop within student volunteering, and in my case in the student movement, the student unionism, are very much in line and very much underlined with the competence framework that you have developed, and I congratulate with you because it is very comprehensive, and I think it works very well. Now, I would like to underline some elements there for what regards the competence, the applicability of the competence framework and the philosophy that is behind it. For what regards the applicability, I think that one of the elements that maybe was also underlined about the how to apply itself, how to apply it in the end, it's and the fact that in any case the element of student volunteering and student participation is very wide. It is important that it is linked with self-assessment tools. So I think that's one of the next steps should be the self-assessment tools in also ways that would like allow the students to make it in a way that they can also prove and what kind of personal specific experiences also have made them develop those skills. And that's also because those kind of life competencies or transversal competencies should not, let's say, limit it to a specific kind of activity, but need to be, let's say, used as a way also to underline, let's say, different the value of different non-formal and informal experiences. At the same time, it is important also to underline the kind of philosophy that is behind it, and that's also linked, if you want, with the work that I'm doing now. There are different ways of understanding the role of university, the role of higher education, the role of further education, and in general, the role of education as a whole. And I think that also it is important that the element of the multiple purposes of education, of further and higher education is recognized, and especially also in professional education, where of course the let's say the element of preparing the person for the job market is more prominent than say traditional more academic oriented higher education. And I think that this competence frameworks helps a bit bridging about on that, because it gives also, if you want, marketability to competencies that are first of all citizenship competencies, and that further the element of active citizenship that should in any case be part of the core also of professional education. But on the other hand, also the underlying concept of university and concept of education more broadly. Education has been historically used for several purposes. University initially was a place where you were building theologians, or where you were building jurists. It was nationalized with let's say with the formation of the modern nation states. So it was actually an important element, for instance, of creation of the citizens, as in a process of, let's say, nationalization of the masses. Today, we've seen in the last years the two ways, if you want, of looking at education, and also to also academic freedom, if you want, as it was indicated. On the one hand, it is a way of seeing basically education as a way to create future workers only, and therefore basically where it is very much let's say limited to the kind of experience that you have in the classrooms, where also formal education was very much limited, let's say, to maybe not develop very much critical thinking, or maybe developing it only within the framework of the subject that you were discussing, and very, let's say, limited also understanding of academic freedom, for instance, would be that. While on the other hand, you have the kind of let's say, of framework that has also been developed thanks, I would also say, to student engagement within also the Bologna process, which is of a higher education institution in this case, but also education more broader as a whole, that also creates citizens, and that also is a place for vigorous societal debate. It is enshrined in the fact that the so-called fundamental values, for instance, of the European higher education area, need to be seen holistically as a whole, and therefore student and staff participation, higher education governance, and the societal involvement of universities is equal to academic freedom and to institutional autonomy and so on. But it is also linked, therefore, to a kind of interpretation of education as a place of societal engagement. Today, this element of societal engagement is being questioned, either to be silenced or to be repressed. And this also is linked to the shrinking of what we call civic space in civil society Europe, and in general in the organization work on fundamental rights and human rights, that is happening in different countries, like in the world, but also in different countries of the EU, for what regards, for instance, how also demonstrations are repressed, or also how difficultly it is possible also for students to engage and organize in academia. So I think that it is important that this framework allows, let's say, to measure competencies. So I think that it is useful also to further that kind of let's say, broader engagement. And at the same time, it also calls for, let's say, for the accountability of the say, higher education hierarchies, and not only higher education, to ensure that this kind of skills and this kind of competencies that are praised through this competence framework can also be applied within university. And to finish, I think that it is important that university also opens it up to the further education also to the broader civil society, so to the local context. And in that, volunteering organization, Center for Volunteering, are going to be also part in that. But also it is important that this is also done internally, and therefore that student involvement and student representation also are not only encouraged, but also valued as they are. This is something that is already, for instance, in the Bologna process, but sometimes we also see that we also know very well it is not implemented at the national or at the local level. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Matteo. It's really important, not only encouraged, but also valued. And I will be moving. I think we are a bit running out of time. So I will be moving to the Miro board. I'm going to ask Laura if you can present on the screen one of the activities. We prepared 2 activities for the Miro board. I suggest we start with the civic engagement impact wall. So we have a moment to share some of the story, lesson, or skill gained through civic involvement. We will be entering the breakout rooms. I'm going to ask Mathilde to help me with that in a moment. As you can see, feel free to pick to discuss in the breakout rooms, and also to write down some of your own experiences, and take a sticky note depending on which category you better represent. Write your lesson, skill, or story that you gained through civic involvement, and feel free to discuss in the breakout room. And we will be joining back in, I would say, 15 minutes, and take 5 more extra minutes to have a look together on what we have shared together. And before joining the breakout rooms, let me know if you have any questions. Okay, that seems quite clear. Mathilde, I would like to ask you to help me with the breakout rooms. Hello, everyone. Back to the main room. We will stay 5 more minutes. First of all, I wanted to ask you to go to the last part of the Miro and to fulfill feedback. It's very simple. You can keep the Miro link open and do it afterwards. And I think we will send you after the meeting a link to the feedback and maybe to the work we have done. I will see if today or maybe next days. And we have a few more minutes to go through the notes we have. Some people mentioned that they gain most management and organizational skills through student engagement or volunteering, which was the basis for most of their professional career after that. Someone from the student side mentioned institutional relations skills, leadership, political and public communication, ownership and community building, and better understanding of political and society dynamics, which I think is a good set of skills, especially for civic engagement throughout life. Some people mentioned organizing events and helping to mobilize student groups for political participation. And a different, someone from other category mentioned that volunteering as a student allowed them to put some of their academic learning into practical context, and that's actually really, indeed, we don't have always the opportunities, independent of what we study as students. They don't have always the opportunity to put in practice, and yes, volunteering can present that opportunity to learn in practice while learning theoretically. And other students mentioned that students can exchange their experiences and find a community and gain more knowledge about society issues, especially within their age group. Thanks a lot to everyone who dared to share their experience. I'm going to take 1 more minute of our time. Let's see if you have any questions. Please feel free to write them in the chat. I would like to thank you for participating. You can also try to write in the second activity that we planned for you, but unfortunately we did not have time. How we can use the framework. Someone actually did, from what I missed that. Someone actually really took the time to look into this one too. Someone mentioned that for teaching, the framework will help integrate civic engagement within courses in terms of service learning, where the framework can help linking this part to the course learning outcomes. And in terms of volunteering, someone mentioned use the framework for promotion of volunteering opportunities, which indeed it can help explain. The framework can explain how different activities develop different skills and thus promote those opportunities. No questions raised for the moment. Thank you a lot for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to complete the feedback form. We will look forward to see you again in the next webinar. In any case, feel free to reach out to us. Can maybe someone help me with putting the project link in the chat? If you'd like to follow for more, feel free to follow the website. We're going to publish also this recording of the webinar. And we were going to share with you more materials on as they are being developed, and hope to see you again soon. Have a nice day. Bye bye.